2023 meeting of the Conservation Advisory Council. So why don't we start off by calling roll?
Okay, I see Mickey Visohalid, Ellen Daviero, Vicky Michaela, and Chairman Strayer.
Great, welcome everybody.
Hello.
So we have two sets of minutes. One is the April 3rd, 2023. Did anybody have any corrections on those minutes at all that they wanted to make?
So I thought the April ones were okay, but there was just some grammatical things, line like 126 and I think 101 in June.
Okay, why don't we just focus on the April and then we'll get to the June ones.
Okay.
So hearing no other comments on the April 3rd, is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
Make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are accepted. Okay, let's move to the June 7th, 2023 minutes. Ellen, you had a couple grammatical errors you wanted to make? Or correct? Excuse me.
Yeah, it was I think I have line 101 and 126. So let me just pull up my packet here really quick.
Mhm.
So 101 is kind of a funny line. It says,
Yeah.
Ms. Daviero stated the pesticide-free pledge went to Arbor Day, and she got 15 to 20 more people to sign the pesticide-free pledge.
Yeah, so it just was a little weird.
It wasn't so much the pledge attending Arbor Day as like you. So we could probably just say Ms. Daviero stated that she went to Arbor Day and got 15 to 20 more people to sign the pesticide-free pledge.
Really anything. I just didn't think a pledge. So yeah. And then 126, I think it's just an it to an is or something.
Oh yeah, so it says the homeowners association can be more restrictive than town code, so that is a concern instead of it a concern.
Yeah, those were the only ones that I found for that meeting.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes for June 2003 with the 2 corrections.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Vicky has acknowledged that she'll make a second. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, let's adopt the minutes. Okay. Privilege of the floor. As Roy, I see that you are online. Would you like to address the committee?
Just briefly,
Sure.
Ellen and Andrew Smith and I went on the 21st to see some of the invasive species on the landfill, and I think it was a very nice excursion. We saw quite a bit. I think it's a matter of people learning what the invasive species are so that they can then spot them and then maybe attack them. The problem is getting to be huge, with especially the Asian bittersweet. Multiflora rose is probably more easily controlled, but it's around a lot. The Japanese knotweed, Laura and I were just talking about that. That's a very difficult one to control. There's a pretty good sized patch right there at the landfill that should be mowed more vigorously. And then there's also buckthorn, and Phragmites is going everywhere. that puts out millions of seeds every year. So I don't know what the answer is. I think it would take some combination of town action, perhaps citizen action, and possibly going after grants from the New York State DEC.
Mhm.
Are there any questions on the part of the people here? You saw, I think, the 7-page letter that I sent with the photographs of the various species that we found at the park and also around the town hall.
Yeah, no, I thought your letter was very good, Roy. From personally, we have struggled with Japanese knotweed for a long time on our property. And I think the biggest challenge with invasive species is that if you take the case of Japanese knotweed, it actually looks pretty when it flowers. So I wonder if people actually really know that it's an invasive species, but I agree with you, it's very difficult to eradicate. Are there like websites and stuff that help people eradicate certain one of these species, or are there best practices?
At the bottom of my letter, I have a couple of links that are great starter links for identifying and methods of control of invasive species. Part of the problem is recognizing that, as you say, that they are invasive. I believe that knotweed was and may even still being sold as a decorative plant. One of the ironies of these various species is that many of them provide seeds for wildlife and food for wildlife. But on the other hand, they eat the berries and then spread the seeds. So one might turn to native species to feed the wildlife, as opposed to saying, well, we need the Japanese knotweed. Oh, I've seen monarchs on the Japanese knotweed, for instance, sipping the nectar, and the Asian bittersweet berries are used in winter wreaths. I use it, but I kill the seeds before I throw it in the trash.
Mhm.
It's the pretty orange berries.
Yeah.
Okay, Laura just brought it up.
So I just want to make sure that everyone in the that received the letter. I wasn't sure if it went out to everyone in the group, so I just want to make sure that happens. I can.
Yeah.
I plan to attend the highway department meeting tomorrow as well. I guess, Ellen, are you going?
So Roy, I was going to go, but I am actually going to go to the mountains tomorrow because I couldn't go today because we had this meeting. So I'm going to go hike tomorrow, but I'll be with you in spirit and I will send it. And after this goes out to them, if they have a plan of action, I'd be happy to, like I said before, this is not my wheelhouse, but I'd be happy to, facilitate anything that needs to be done to help.
Okay. If you want me to say anything, just send me an email and I will convey it.
Okay, thanks. So these are the links that Roy was talking about, Chairman. They're I think they're DEC links, maybe NewYorkUpstate.com, and then Upstate New York invasive plants, and then Wikipedia list of invasive plants. And then I did want to note that another person tagged on to the thread and mentioned PRISM, which I've worked with before. PRISM is the Partnerships for Regional Invasive Species Management, and you can report invasive species to PRISM. And then IMAP Invasives, which is like a tool that you can use to report invasive species. I think that IMAP Invasives is a little more useful when you're on the sort of the cutting edge of where the species are invading, because they're trying to catch the pockets before they get super widespread. But I think I was talking to one of the Schenectady County has an invasive species subunit, I think. And they weren't that aware of a lot of Japanese knotweed in Niskayuna. They were surprised that I had it in my yard. So it could be useful if you have something, even if you think it's pretty prevalent, to put it in IMAP to just let people know. So if DEC is thinking of a plan like statewide to, help, they need to know where all the invasive species are.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm wondering if the Niskayuna town website should include information or maybe letters that go out to people in the town, or maybe the Niskayuna Journal, to let people know what the invasive species are, maybe links like these and others to get people moving, get them thinking about it.
Yeah,
We
I think that's a good suggestion.
We could do that. And then, I mean, if you guys are willing to write like an article for our next newsletter, I could probably get it included if you just wanted to just kind of write, what species you found and what people should look for with some pictures. We could probably get it. We could probably get it in the next town newsletter.
Okay. Let me know when the deadline is.
Okay. I'll look it up. I don't know when the next deadline is, but you could write it at any time and then I can submit it too.
Okay.
I think education is really key here, because I think once you learn to recognize some of these invasive species, you end up seeing them in a lot of places, around. And I agree, we need to be more actively deterring these species in our town. So.
And I just want to say, I just thought that Andrew, when we met with him, he works for the highway department, and he had mentioned, he saw the invasive species. He saw, he kind of had like a list of things that he could do now, and then things that needed to perhaps be, for the Asian bittersweet, we need to, hire someone to be able to take care of that one. So hopefully that is sort of the process that the town and highway is going to take. And, we could try to work on, on those as well. And I just think that really everything in this letter, Roy, would just be perfect for basically for the article. Yeah.
Is it too long?
Oh, I defer to Laura.
Too long. But I mean, the other thing we could do is the next time they reach out, I could just pull from that letter and make it shorter, because there are nice pictures in there too.
Okay.
If you don't mind me, taking all of your words.
Not at all.
So are you saying for like our Niskayuna, or are you talking about the town's own newsletter?
I was talking about the town's own newsletter, because they always ask us for newsletter items.
Okay.
I mean, your Niskayuna isn't a bad venue. I know that Dennis writes an article once a month for, Niskayuna Journal. You might want to reach out to him and see what it involves.
I don't know him.
Dennis Brennan.
He's the historian.
He's the town historian.
Yeah, I know him,
Okay.
or I've met him. Actually, I know his wife much better, but I've met him once or twice.
I mean, he could give us some insight on how to get into the queue there.
Okay, can you put him in
Yeah.
touch with me?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
This is a pretty complex issue, because you've got a lot of these things are along the roads. The town roads, the county roads, the state roads. I don't think the federal roads are involved in Niskayuna, but then a lot of these species have no natural enemies. And they're very resilient, as you pointed out about the Japanese knotweed. And it may need to, we may need to resort to spot spraying of herbicides,
Yeah,
which is going to encounter resistance, but
yeah, I agree with you, Roy. I think from like the, some of them also get spread when we cut the sides of the roads. I know that Japanese knotweed is very good at, rooting itself. So if you cut it and it gets laid down somewhere, it could root back into the ground so it can get spread along the roads. That's one of the ways it gets spread. So maybe we can do something how we cut the sides of the roads.
Mhm.
Use extra care in areas where the knotweed is present.
I hadn't read that. I'd read that they spread by underground rhizomes.
Oh, they do that too, yeah.
I didn't realize that the stems rooted if they're
Yeah.
lying on the ground. I've never seen that, but who knows?
No, actually, my older son did a project on invasive species when he was in college, and that was one of the things he learned in that project. So I haven't read it firsthand, but that's what he
Okay.
has noticed. So
Okay, well, I've probably taken enough of your meeting time on this.
no, this is important, Roy, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Okay,
Well-
do we have anybody
So-
else? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say this. I felt like part of the NRI has some really some people in it that are involved in it that are very plant oriented and very when I went to one of their meetings, I don't know if they're still involved, but
You're talking about the natural resource inventory, Ellen?
yes.
Yeah, there are
I
a
thought
couple
there were a couple of
botanists.
people on there that
Yep.
this was, their wheelhouse.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know when we did the tour with Jim, there were other botanists there that were pointing out a lot of the flora.
So perhaps maybe we could try to, to bring them in, some people with some knowledge to really, maybe, yeah, that's just my,
That's actually a good idea. We should reach out. We can do that. Okay, any other discussion on this topic or should we move on? Again, thank you, Roy, for bringing this to our attention.
You're welcome.
It's important. Okay, we have no EIFs, however, on, Lord, did you say something or? Oh, okay. On June 28th, the town board passed a resolution based on our recommendation to issue a positive deck, which basically now requires us to move to the next stage, and that is the scoping stage. And the scoping stage, there's a timeline that was put in your in the minutes, and I think it's part of what you're showing, Laura. Yeah.
Mhm.
And being the Conservation Advisory Committee, we are charged with coming up with the scoping for the draft environmental impact statement. The draft environmental impact statement is what the developer needs to address and fill out in conjunction with this committee in the town. And so I think the way this goes is we have to identify what the scope of the draft EIS is. And then that puts the next phase of this positive deck into motion. After that, then once that's completed, then it goes through a public review and public comment process. And then it goes on to, it basically gets issued as a final environmental impact statement, and then a decision is made about how to proceed forward. And there's a timeline in the packet. I think it's just above what Laura is showing. So the scoping can be up to 60 days. The DEIS really doesn't have a time frame, but the developer works on that with the town, and they mutually decide when it's done. And then after that, there's timelines again, 45 days to determine the completeness of the environmental impact statement, and then a 30-day review minimum to be determined. But right now we're in this scoping stage where Laura's pointing. So that's the process that's in motion. So Laura, I don't know if you wanted to speak any bit on there on this, or Clark. I know you've been in touch with MJ Engineering on this. I didn't know if you had any details you wanted to add.
Do you want to add anything, Clark?
Sure. No, just to follow up on what Dart said, no one had really done a positive seeker declaration in quite some time at the town. So we engaged the services of MJ Engineering. This is a document that they had that they really just pulled from the DEC website, but we did engage them to help coach us a little bit. So they were involved in helping with the resolution for the town board meeting. The next step is a significant undertaking that would have a significant cost to the applicant. So I think the applicant is still kind of digesting that positive seeker declaration, right, Laura? And I mean, it's unclear to me whether they're going to even possibly withdraw their application, or do we need some kind of written feedback from them on what their intention is?
Well, without actually written intention to withdraw, I believe we just have to keep moving forward. So the points that we put in the part 3, I think is actually also in your packet. And what we probably will do is we'll work with the consultant to dive into the points that were made in the part 3 relating to the, I believe we called out the questions. I think Clark did a really good summary where he noted which questions we had called out. And what we're going to do is probably hone in on these. Yeah, he did. Impacts to surface water, impacts to plants and animals, aesthetic resources, historic and archaeological resources, open space and recreation, consistency with community plans, and consistency with community character. So that's where we're going to hone in the scoping document. And as we work on that, we'll probably reach out to you guys. And I would imagine that, like Chairman Strayer had said, you will be the main kind of board that this runs through the seeker process until it's ready to go to the town board again.
So given the time frame that we have, I think that we should, and Laura, I told Clark that I would work with trying to consolidate the scope. And I think, Clark, what you've written is really, really good and stuff like that. But I think by our next meeting, we should probably have a good idea of what we want the scoping to be. And, I think there's a balance here between what's really important to us and what we're asking the applicant to focus on. And then some of the other stuff that we think could be mitigated by, conditions, perhaps those are less important at this stage. And that's my feeling on that. I don't know how the rest of the board feels on that.
Yeah, I guess what's just unclear to me is there's a sizable fee for our engineering consultant to work with us. So we would first have to get an escrow account from them going, I would imagine, Laura, for that.
That's true, Clark. Yeah. We will need to get an escrow from the developer in order to move forward with the scoping document. That's correct.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Because I know that there's a clock here that we are under a 60-day requirement to come through this scoping process. Maybe we need to figure out when that clock actually starts.
Well, okay, it probably does start at the positive declaration, which occurred, I think, on June 28th.
28th, yeah.
28th, yeah. I did reach out to the developer today to just chat with him a little bit on the fee. But I obviously need to give him a little bit of time to respond to that. But Clark and I should probably have, you know, an escrow and a path moving forward here and then the next, I would say, week or two, so that we can meet those timeframes.
Okay.
And I think from what we've already paid MJ Engineering, I think they're intending to help lay out like a good first step or what the process is. We just need to reach out to them. But that's my take, Laura, from talking to them over the last week or two, that, I mean, we paid them a decent amount of money and all they've really done is written a short resolution. So I think they realize they owe us a little bit more, or,
Yeah.
you know, once it became a positive declaration, I think they're ready to help outline the exact next steps.
For scoping. Okay, well, that's good.
I think the other thing we need to is sort of include the town attorney to make sure that we're adhering to the seeker requirements and stuff.
Yeah, we'll make sure we do that.
Yeah.
Good point.
Because I know the whole process can get very technical pretty quick and very specific. I want to make sure that we're on target with what we're asking.
Well, one of the things that we talked about too, that I would actually be happy to get involved in is use this. This is a really interesting project in a sense that it really walks us through the whole seeker process. So I wouldn't mind pulling some of these things out and making a couple of slides to help us have a discussion in the CAC just about seeker and the seeker process. I learned a lot by just digging into it over the last 2 weeks, and I think everybody would learn a little bit about that if we just had a little you know, almost like a little mini learning session at one of our meetings or somewhere.
No, I think that would be good, Clark.
Yeah. Because it's an interesting, intricate, involved process that I learned a lot just by digging into documents, and it's quite interesting actually.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to put something together and present at the next meeting, that would be great.
Yeah,
I don't want to put you on the spot, but
no, I can do that. I'll obviously bounce it off you guys, but sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
It's interesting.
Okay.
That would be helpful because when I was reading it, you know, it said, you know, just when it was saying, you know, surface water and, you know, there must be a certain amount of surface water. It must have very specific guidelines for that. So, and, you know, some of the other, you know,
Right.
it seems this, I didn't think it was just, you know, a broad blanketed, you know, amount, you know, I figured it was something specific.
Right. And even just
Yeah.
how the EAF Part 1 feeds into the EAF Part 2, feeds into the EAF Part 3. It's just interesting. So yeah, all right, we'll get started on that.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is we're asking the applicant to, you know, do some additional work, and we want to make sure that, you know, that work is on target with our concerns. So I think that,
Right.
you know, the scoping is really, really important, that we
Right.
focus on what we feel is really important.
Right. So we can use this project kind of as the straw man of walking us through the whole seeker process.
Right. So how do you envision proceeding, Laura? We're going to engage MJ or Clark. We're going to engage MJ. is this committee, do you want to work with this committee to come up with the draft, and what are the expectations, or what are the what would work best for the town in order to get this to the point where we need to be?
Well, I think we still need to coordinate a little with MJ because, like Clark said,
Okay.
we still, I think we still need some professional. Make sure that through the town attorney and the consultant that the correct steps are being followed. But like what I would envision is that, MJ will take the documentation that we had and probably at least give us a sense of what our scoping document should be. We can reach out to the developer, get some escrow to begin the environmental impact statement process. And then I think we would work the consultant to come up with a draft scoping document that I think we should bring to the next Conservation Advisory Council meeting for your review and potential approval. And at that point, I think we're only at probably 45 days at that point,
Yep.
maybe a little bit less. And that's probably a good set of eyes to check that the scoping document is what you originally intended with your initial recommendation to the town board, and then obviously we'll run it past the town board as well. And as long as that makes sense to everybody, at that point we could turn it over to the applicant.
What do people think?
Laura, could you put up the little summary I put together?
Oh, sure. Yep.
And the only reason I want to do that is because all I did was I went through the EAF part 1, and which the applicant fills out, and then EAF part 2. And I looked at all the basic categories of EAF part 2. And I think it said there were 18.
Mhm.
So there were 18 categories, and we, somewhere in there, I said how many we said there was a moderate or large impact on those.
Yes,
So
7 of the 18.
Seven of the 18. When we did EAF part 2, 7 of the 18 categories we said had a moderate to large impact. So me not really knowing it, my impression is that of those 7, our scoping document may narrow that down a little bit more to maybe there's 5, or I don't know. It may narrow them down to the most important that we feel really need a deeper dive and more analysis. And
Yeah,
that's kind of what the scoping document becomes. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah, I don't know that you would narrow it down because they've already answered moderate to large impact. But I think within each of those questions, there's a lot of sub questions.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, we identified it in those sub questions where the issue really lies.
I got you. Okay.
So I think that just clarifying, because in those sub questions, there's still a fair amount of things to sift through. So I think you go into the areas where you've identified an impact, and then you really hone in those areas where the specific impact of concern is, and then you're able to give that back to the developer.
Got it.
Yeah,
Because
I think
there were
I think
18 sorry, Dart, but there
No,
were
no, go ahead.
there were 18 categories, but like Laura said, some of those categories had 10 questions in the category, or maybe even more. So some of those may be more important than others.
Well, and we might be able to include, group some of them together, for example, the impact on open space, recreation, and the impact on, the historic and aesthetic resources. I would imagine that would require the developer to look at different alternatives
Right.
to accomplish the goals. So some of those I think could be sort of pulled together into a single area where you look at, let's say, the impact on energy, impact on noise and light and health. I'm not sure that those are the biggest issues here, but that we could group them into some other question, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I think it'll be good to get the training, but we actually put the energy, the noise, and the light as a small. So those have already been set aside. And the scoping document, theoretically, if we didn't give them a scoping document, they would have to look at all 18. We've actually already done a decent amount of the scoping document by going through and setting aside the 7 of the questions that we felt were the most significant and had the potential to have significant impacts on the town of Niskayuna. So I mean, Clark in this document has already shown how we've taken the 18 and brought it down to 7. Without us giving them a scoping document, they would theoretically have to address all 18 questions. The scoping document says we've set aside noise, odor, and light, like that can all be dealt with, you know, under the normal codes of the town of Niskayuna. And where we really want you to focus is on these 7 categories. But I think what we really have to do is, okay, we've got these 7 categories, but within those 7 categories, there's a lot of different specific questions. So we want to make sure that we're calling out exactly what the concern is with the impacts to surface water. And then they will take that document and start creating an environmental impact statement based on those. But with a scoping document, we're not even saying this is what you need to do to address it. All we're doing is we're carving out parts of the environmental impact or the environmental assessment form. We're carving away things that we know they don't have to spend the money to dive into. And we're having them focus all of their energy on these things that we've identified. That's really what a scoping is. It's like we're saying you don't have to look at energy and transportation. I want to double check that, Clark, because I think transportation, we said there may be an impact, but we didn't have enough information.
That's what we
Didn't
said.
have the traffic study, but yeah. But let's, like put aside energy or critical environmental area because we know we have none. So it allows the applicant to not have to address that in his environmental impact statement.
I think, Laura, though, when we flush these out, we have to sort of be more, and maybe we're talking the same type, but more specificity. I mean, because if you take like the impact on open space and recreation, I think there's a lot in that question. And what I don't want to see is the applicant coming back and saying, we're only developing 14 acres of a 190 acre site. It's not part of the active golf course, so there's no impact. I think
Right.
questions have to be more broad than that to really.
Oh yeah, I
focus
think
in.
so too. And that's why I think it'll really help with MJ.
Yeah.
Is like we have separated out the environmental assessment form, so we know that they want to focus in on the 7 or potentially 8 categories. And then from there, what is it within those 8 categories that, could really negatively impact Niskayuna?
Do you think that we could get MJ to come to the next CAC meeting to talk to us about their scoping document?
Definitely. Yeah, they would.
Okay.
Okay, and you guys are my troopers because you're here. But I'll say this to the other members. I think it's going to be important during this process that, we have as full board as we can get, and fully engaged with this. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I would second that.
Yeah, that's a great.
It is. It's going to be very impactful to a very important project in the town. So, there's a lot at stake in this project, and we need to get this environmental impact statement correct, done well, I feel. Okay. Does anybody on the committee have any questions? I know that the 3 of us have been doing a lot of talking. Just want to make sure that we hear any questions or concerns the committee might have.
No, I think it was well laid out. I really appreciate the breakdown that Clark did, and I'm looking forward to a little bit more guidance, but have been thinking about these for a while and how they, and I just need my parameters now.
Yeah, fair enough, Ellen. I think we're all in uncharted territory. I was telling Clark that I have not actually been through a full positive deck with an environmental impact statement. I think the last time the town did one was for ShopRite Plaza and maybe Niskayuna Square. So that was quite a while ago. And that was before my time in Niskayuna, so.
That was
Okay.
going to be my question, whether anyone has dealt with this in the past and, using that as a model, or maybe we can reach out to, although I'm sure Laura, you have wealth of information, and you too, Clark, but I don't know, just reaching out to others who have been through this process for additional guidance as needed.
So it is a regular process. It happens all the time in New York State. And so there's a ton of guidance on it, and there's a ton of rules. And that's, I think, why we reached out to MJ. I don't think you necessarily have to be concerned if you've never done one. But they're fairly standard thing that happens in New York and several other states in America, and it happens at a federal level as well. So yeah, we've got MJ to help us, and we'll guide you through the process. And yeah, it's not inventing a wheel in any way. So you don't need to feel like, what are we doing? Like, it's a very prescriptive process that we'll be able to walk you through the steps.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no other questions or comments, I would like to move on, if that's okay with the committee. Okay.
That works.
Okay, reports. I think at our last meeting, we discussed the Bethlehem Conservation Easement Program quite a bit. And I'm not quite sure we need to discuss that at this meeting, but Laura, do you want to update us on the grant situation for the natural resource inventory?
I'm sure. I was just to close out the Bethlehem Conservation Easement.
Yep.
Just from doing the minutes from the last meeting, I think where we landed was that Chelsea and Ashok were going to work on the fact sheet. So I'm not actually going to present that at the Economic Development Committee. I may just mention it on Friday, but I think we do need to have that fact sheet before the board to make sure that we're all okay with it before we fully present it. As far as the natural resources inventory goes, we did receive good news from DEC that there's an intent to award it to the town of Niskayuna. So we should be, I don't know exactly what the timeline is. It's normally a little bit, but we should be able to move forward, if not the end of this year, next year, with a pretty robust second phase of the natural inventory. I think we in that grant had identified 10 pretty large parcels, and the grant was for $15,000. So it'll be a good chunk of areas in Niskayuna to be inventoried, and we're very thankful that looks like it's coming our way.
That's great news.
That is great news. Awesome.
Okay, pesticide outreach. Are there any updates on that?
No, not really. Just gonna actually go to the farmers markets with pesticide-free stuff and composting, and yeah, and continue plugging along.
Great. How about LOMO, biodiversity initiative update?
So in regards to LOMO, so that was one of the things that we we're going to continue with the areas that we have. I feel like we need to just have a conversation around our dare I say, the Frisbee golf that is on the cap, just because it doesn't look like it's successful for them currently, and it doesn't look like it's, successful for the, for LOMO. I think it's not. So I'm just hoping that maybe we can figure out a better solution for them so that it works a little bit better. But that is sort of on the back burner. I have a couple of other things that I am working on, for composting first.
Okay. Specifically, did you have some specific concerns about the Frisbee golf and the LOMO?
No, just that it's, I guess my concern is this, is that where it is, the Frisbee Golf are maintaining it, and Niskayuna is mowing portions of it. But when we first established the Frisbee Golf, we were one of the first people in the area to do it. But since then, other communities have put up courses that seem to attract more people. And so I'm just wondering if we should rethink where we have them, and if, and to make to improve our 9 holes, and to, figure that portion out. That's all.
Okay.
Maybe Roy might have something to say, because he was there, with me as well. And
I see that there's a lot of neglect of the golf tees and the baskets up there. Weeds grown up around the baskets, and the timbers around the tees breaking up, and the thing not being weeded very well. So I'm not sure the traffic is very heavy out there anymore.
Mhm.
So it may not pay Niskayuna to keep it.
Does that fall under the recreation department preview, or is there a volunteer group that takes care of that or has set that up? Do you know, Laura Clark?
No, I believe it's maintained by the Parks Department.
Yeah.
I believe that, sorry, Laura, I asked, Andrew did say that, that the club takes care of the nets in that area.
Mhm.
So I think it's a combination, but I think I think all of that, it all just needs to be revisited, and, to put some fresh eyes on it and see what needs to be done. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I think what you're talking about, Ellen, is more long-term planning of this. And the reason why I asked the question was I wanted to make sure that there wasn't some near-term solution, but it sounds to me like there's a broader conversation on this.
Yeah, I don't
One
want to.
thing, go
I
ahead.
don't want to insinuate that. I don't want to, say that I know what's going on with what,
Yeah.
like how many groups come, how often they're doing it, like
Yeah.
what, all the background, because I don't have that. I just think it's worth a conversation.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I did read an article, and I believe it was either in the Times or Washington Post, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which newspaper it was, but it was talking about corporations now moving towards a low mow type of arrangement for their properties, as opposed to golf course grass lawns for their properties, sort of like what GE has done. And that's been driven both by economics primarily, but also to this whole initiative of low mow. So I thought that was kind of good news. If I find the article, I'll send it out to the committee. I should have flagged it when I read it.
Thank you. So I did want to just ask a quick question. I wasn't sure if I wasn't sure if letters had been sent to those businesses along Balltown. I thought that Ashok and Katie Clark were working on that. Or had contacts, and if I can help in any way, just let me know.
Okay. We can follow up with a show on that.
I was working pretty diligently with Momentive, and our contact was taking it to their board to see if they would at least listen to our low mow initiative. So I still haven't heard back, but I'll reach out to them again.
I had a question. Last time we talked about, on private property and the ordinance, the town ordinance of the 10-inch height, rule that the grass can't be above that. And I was wondering, during low mow, there was a discussion about there being an exception during low mow May. So I was just wondering what the next steps should be with that.
Yeah, Vicki, I actually brought that up at the economic committee meeting and said that, we should look at that. So we should look at that ordinance and find out if there is a problem there and if there needs to be a fix there. So, we can put that on what we need to work on, at some point. I think we're gonna be focused on the seeker in the immediate future, but
Okay, do we know actually what ordinance it is? Maybe between now and then we'll figure out that out.
Yeah, I was gonna
well,
say,
yeah, and you can get on the actual website for the ordinances and go through them. I don't know it offhand.
I can send that around. Yeah,
Okay,
there is one particular part in the code. I think at the EDHPEC meeting, there was some discussion about just working with the building inspectors to understand that there's there's certainly a leniency during May, but I guess were we talking about going beyond May, where if someone just wanted their lawn to be higher than, I believe it's 10 inches?
I think, Clark, when I brought that up at that meeting, I was just thinking about just May.
Right.
That might be easier to do it in steps. I think it's easy, it might be an easier win to just get May excluded from that ordinance. I think it gets more complicated if you do it year round. Just
Right.
like, how do you deal with abandoned properties and stuff
Right.
like that?
And Laura, just, I think it was one or two people had been cited for having tall grass during no mow May or something like that.
Yeah, that was my recognition as well.
Yeah.
it didn't
Yeah,
happen
because-
this year. It happened last May.
Yeah.
I was told about someone
Okay,
who was cited.
Yeah.
with it.
We talked about this at the last meeting. Like, the building inspectors won't look to cite, but if there's a complaint, we can't ignore the code. So, although typically, like on a lawn, you're given usually 2 weeks to comply. And so if you are cited in sort of mid to late May, you would be mowing your lawn in the beginning of June anyway, but nobody likes to get a citation. I get it.
Right.
But generally speaking, even the lawns that are cited, the enforcement timeline doesn't usually occur until actually June. So I don't actually think that people who are trying to mow their lawn in May are not able, or trying not to mow their lawn in May, are not able to like truly do that. But I understand that, nobody likes to get a citation from the town, and you will have to mow your lawn at some point
Yeah.
in June, according to our code. There's no question about it. I remember that Vicky had said that the town sends out letters to the people on the parade route, which is a totally separate animal to me. I have no control over that. If you're going to go into the town code, and like Clark had said, we can send out that particular code. Potentially we could put some kind of a time frame in that, and I'm no expert, but in some things that I've been reading, they were saying that no mow May may not actually be as beneficial as people were thinking, because all of the bugs move into the lawn and create their homes and think that they're safe, and then they get mowed on June 1st. So it's almost like, I don't want to be like, it's almost like, you read that something causes cancer, and then you read something else that says it doesn't cause cancer. You can probably read anything you want, but there may need to be a balance, and fixing a code, I don't know that that's necessarily going to impact no mow May. That's just my personal opinion from having enforced it for 6 or 7 years. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that. I'm not even 100% sure that it may last forever, because there may be some downsides to everybody moving in and thinking that they're safe, and then they're not.
So, if I may piggyback off on that, so just, when you're going after this, so they do say, I've read that as well. That, a lot of people just let your grass grow a certain, try to crowd out some of the other invasive species. But it would be okay. What I'm just curious about is that I know that some people are now leaving sections of their lawns, like in their back or on their sides, and they're letting, they're like creating letting it go all summer long. So that I think we might want to think about and address in the in this code. Should we tackle just what exactly it says. Because it does get above 10 inches if you leave it for the whole entire summer. Like in my backyard, am experimenting a little bit, but apparently I don't have enough sun and water, and it's not, or sun, because it's not growing very fast.
Yeah, we should at least look at the code. Let's have further discussions on this and we can go forward on that. Okay, quiet Niskayuna. Vicky, you sent out an email asking if it had been presented. I did bring it up to the last environmental historic preservation committee, and I did mention that I thought it was a good thing for the town to sort of take on. So the town board is aware of that, or that committee is aware of that. So we did bring that up.
Okay, so I saw there's a meeting on Friday, so you don't want me to come to that? or-
As a citizen, you can certainly come and reinforce that if you'd like, the privilege of the floor.
Okay. All right, I'll do that then.
Yeah, because I think I heard Chairman Strayer mention that, but one thing that Ashok had done when he came to the town board meeting was try and get the town board to pass a non-binding resolution, encouraging people to look for alternatives to pesticides on their lawns. And I think Vicky, you and I have talked about this, but I think if we could get the town board on board, essentially what we would be looking for is a resolution, supporting the Quiet Niskayuna initiative,
So it's the town board, not that other body?
Well, yeah, the body,
It's complicated.
the committees are actually the town board. They're the way that the resolutions make it to the town board.
I see. So the first body would be that one environmental, that long name. the
Yeah,
preservation. And then
PHPC.
from there, it would go to the town board as a non-binding resolution as a sort of,
Yeah.
the town supports it, basically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because there's a couple steps. You could get the town board to actually just recognize and support the Quiet Niskayuna initiative. That would be step one. And then I think step two would be, like you had said, kind of the next step is looking at codes which actually kind of maybe don't allow the gas powered leaf blowers and things like that. There are examples of the codes, but I think the first step would be at least to get the town board to read the pamphlet and endorse the Quiet Niskayuna. We could put it on our website and see how that goes, and then just start chipping away at something stronger in the future, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, right now we have our own website. It would be nice if it were part of the town website.
Yeah, or we could even link to
Or
it.
link
I think that, like, the formal way to do that would be with the town board recognizing the work that you guys have done on Quiet Niskayuna and endorsing, endorsing the ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You may have sent it to me before, but if you're able to send me the Quiet Niskayuna pamphlet, or if it's on your website and I can download it, I actually wanted to include it in the next economic development committee packet for Friday.
I mean, we used a lot of information on our website to create the pamphlet, but it's not on the website per se.
But you did pass out a pamphlet.
I
in
can,
the meeting.
yes, and I can send you that. I can send you the actual PDF of the pamphlet.
Yeah, could you send me the PDF of the pamphlet? And do you
Sure.
mind if I include it? I would need it tonight. If you have it.
Well, the only thing is that my John Marr it's on his computer. I have to check. I take it back. I have it. I do have it because I sent it to the printer recently. I had more flyers made up, and we updated the flyer slightly. So anyway, okay, yes, I can do that. Absolutely.
Sorry for the condensed timeline, but I just thought it would work if you could do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of other, updates, we're going to be at the farmers market as well. I noticed Ellen said that she was going to be there, and we're going to be there on the 5th of August and the 8th of September. So 2 dates, and we're just basically trying to like grow our supporters right now. I sent out a mass, an email blast to another group that I'm a part of, and just trying to identify people that live in the town, because I think you can be a supporter and not live in the town, but I think it's more powerful if our supporters actually live in the town. And then we can come back to the town board and say, we have, 500 members, or we have 700 members, or whatever it is, or supporters. So those are our, focus right now, is growing it, increasing awareness and growing it. So, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, let's move on to the composting initiative.
So just in regards to that, I believe I don't know if we're live yet, but we're really close of getting everything that we did for composting up and online.
Good. Excellent.
It's live, but we're still tweaking it a little. But if you just go to the Conservation Advisory Council, on the left, there's a link that says composting in Niskayuna, and then it's trying to link everything into that one page.
Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and I think when we finish it, we'll do like a blast, and we could put something on the front, right? On the main page, we could just say.
We could do a news and announcement when it's done. Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks.
Laura, I have a question. So you mentioned you are going to request more funding so that we can have more of the, composting education events with the takeaway compost bins and things like that. Now, is it coming this coming school year, or like what is the status?
Okay, I will try and get more funding. It's not a matter of just requesting it. It's not a rolling thing that happens. You actually have to do a different initiative, and then NYSERDA gives you $5,000. So the first one we did that Solarize Niskayuna campaign. I don't know if you guys remember, where we did a bunch of email blasts and got a couple companies to talk to people about community solar. And we got enough people to subscribe to community solar that we were able to get that $5,000 grant. That $5,000 grant is what we used to buy the compost bins with. We also did what was the other one that we did? Might have just been, I don't know, energy code training or something. We did another thing that got us recognized and got us another $5,000 grant, which we used to buy LED lights from one of our parks. So the next two initiatives that could get us $5,000 are figuring out the best deal for an electric vehicle and putting that out to the public and getting a certain number of people to buy electric vehicles within the town of Niskayuna, or learning about heat pumps and getting a good price and understanding of the heat pumps. And then if you get a certain number of people in Niskayuna who sign up to have the construction to change their house over to heat pumps, then we could get another $5,000. So I'm willing to do any of those things, but it isn't a matter of just asking NYSERDA for more composting bin money. We actually have to do quite a bit of work to get more composting bin money.
Okay.
The nice thing about it is that once we do that work, we sort of know what we want to apply it to.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that to me. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I remember Keela was talking that one of the, 2 programs day, Keela was saying like she would be very interested in working with Niskayuna schools, to do the composting education in the, K-12 system. And I just thought that that's such an interesting, way to educate people at different age level. I thought that would be so exciting. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
That's a great way to do it, right? Because if you learn to compost as a kid, it's normal to you. It's not a skill that you're trying to fit into your schedule. It's something that you just learn to do. So for sure, if she could get into the schools, that'd be great. And Ellen's been working pretty hard on trying to get compost bins for people who can't compost in their yard to be able to bring it to a place in Niskayuna. I know she's been working on that really hard too. So hopefully we'll have a lot of different composting options, and we can continue to work with Kayla in the future. I do want to get another grant, but it will take a little while.
Oh, okay. I see. Ellen, if there's anything that I can help, just let me know.
Okay.
For whatever, initiative that you're working with by yourself or with Kira, I'll be very interested.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess we would just want to decide, do we want to go after the electric vehicles or the heat pumps? And then we would just take it from there.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Why don't we move to the climate smart, communities, greenhouse gas inventory and, climate action plan? Laura, did you have something you wanted to report on that, or?
I don't actually have anything to report on that, but I did leave it on the agenda because it
Okay.
is important.
I agree. Okay, does anybody else want to talk about another topic we haven't talked about tonight?
Nope, I
Okay.
think I'm good.
Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn, if somebody wants to make that.
I make a motion to adjourn the July 5th, 2023 meeting.
Okay, do I have a second? I'll second that. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no one opposed, I call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay, good night,
Bye-bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.